name is Francis Everly with a Complete Leader with another episode of Ask a Coach. This is where you, our community, ask burning questions about career, about work environment, about leadership from our expert faculty. Well, today, I'm pleased to say we have Davina Ware, who is a career and workforce strategist, marketing professional, and founder of Upward Paved Path Career. Thanks for being here today, Davina.
Thanks for having me, Francis.
We have a question from our community today that you get to answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, question for this one is, I consider myself to have sound judgment, good morals, and strong work ethic. No matter how efficient I am, my boss is constantly hanging over my shoulder. She does this to everyone. I thought if I could show her that I can be trusted, that she would back off. Now, this isn't the case, and I'm starting to get burned out. Should I allow myself to be micromanaged? I proud myself in my work and don't feel this is warranted. Yeah, this is a good question.
Ooh, yeah, it is. And I can say that I've been there, and it's easy to take it personally, which it sounds like this person is doing. And I've done the same, where you just think, well, I'm doing really well. There's no need for you to hover. But it sounds like there's something going on with that manager. Maybe there are some heavy deadlines they're under. If there are some initiatives that they are responsible for. And it sounds like they're more concerned about the outcomes, and it's not necessarily about the person. I mean, that's easier said when you're on the other side of it, but I just would encourage this person to step outside of what's happening to them and look at the bigger picture to say, okay, my manager needs some reassurance or some help because they must be under some really stressful things. So I would actually take the approach of talking to the manager, not in a way of a complaint, like, hey, you're hanging over me, I'm tired of you doing it, but to extend an olive branch and say, I'm pretty efficient in what I'm doing, and I'm sure you've witnessed my work. How can I take some stress off of your place in this project or in this role? And then start to outline, and things will slowly start to come from the manager of, okay, well, I'm really responsible for this. And maybe it's their first time doing it, or maybe they have had a bad review in the past that they are trying to outwork. But by having the conversation and showing that you want to help, I think that will take some of the stress off of in the tension from the relationship. And that is also, I think, mature and being proactive in that way will help to build trust as well. And I think it'll help to bring down the guards of the manager to say, oh, well, this person wants to help, I can trust them. And I think they'll naturally start to back off. But it starts with opening the lines of communication before we label something, before we judge, okay, this is what it is, this is a horrible person. The best thing you can do for yourself and your career is at least have this open and honest conversation, compassionate conversation, which is probably counterintuitive considering the situation, but you'd be surprised how much change can come from it. Yeah. In some situations, it's not best to run from this situation, and I help people to transition careers, but in this case, I think it would be a loss if you didn't try to have some kind of empathy with that manager. Now, if you get there and the manager is closed-minded, or they don't want to talk to you, or they keep blowing you off, well, then there's your answer. Then you know that situation is probably not going to change. And sure, you can take it up to the higher levels, but that may be the culture of the whole company. So if you are that uncomfortable and you have tried to have conversation and dialogue with your manager, then just know you have a decision to make on whether you want to stay in this environment, or if it doesn't work for you, then start making a plan to get out.
Yeah, so that's great information, and I think it's really good advice, Davina. What I'm wondering about is that micromanaging is something that's really common, and it can happen with all leaders. And sometimes it has to do with them wanting to be like they're perfectionists. They want to have everything absolutely correct. And your first take on this was to try to ease this manager's workload or to try to make it so they wouldn't necessarily be micromanaged. But what if, and it sounds like maybe this is going on, they do this to everybody, that's just who they are, is, and so it's really not about their workload, but their mindset. So is there any, would you change your advice or have this person think a little in another way to help? I don't know. I'm just, yeah.
Good question, because from a professional in this space, it makes me think that professional development for the whole team would be beneficial. So, for example, that manager having the understanding of their behavioral style and then knowing those styles of everyone on their team, as you know, it normally gives a lot of light bulbs. And if we're constantly putting that information in our language and our culture, even physically on our desks, it can help that manager to be aware of how they come off. Because you're right, they may be operating in autopilot and they don't really realize what's happening. And it doesn't help if people aren't saying anything. But and the only reason why I didn't fully suggest that is I don't know how much power that employee would have to say, hey, let's, can we look into professional development? They could, because you never know if there's budget available. And if they start to build a rapport with this leader to say, I think we could really benefit from some team building. So they could open that conversation to do that.
Yeah, well, that's good. And I was just thinking, you got me thinking that, with a team, uh, either team building or just team session where you could even get into some 360 feedback,
Yeah.
which with the same tools that you talked about. It's a pretty complex question, even though it seems very simple, and that there may be this one answer. And I agree with you. There seem to be different ways to think about how you would, and you need to know a little bit more, but yeah, how you might help them. Any other
Yeah.
last thoughts before we wrap this session up?
Just that there's light at the end of the tunnel. With these kinds of scenarios, it can feel like very crushing. Like there's no way I can get out of this. There's nothing I can do, but just that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And, this situation doesn't have to stay this way. Whether it's you leaving or you starting to build really good relationships, that's something you can take with you anywhere. So overall, I think it can be a win-win situation.
Great. Thanks. And I hope the person that submitted this has the opportunity to watch and take this feedback, because I think it could be very helpful. So thanks for being with us today, Davina.
Thanks, Francis.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Ask the Coach. Check our other coaching scenarios on the Complete Leaders website, www.thecompleteleader.org. The Complete Leader is one word. We'll see you next time.